really exciting. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to have all of you here for the first ever Manage Your Money Financial Literacy Workshop here on campus. We're hoping to make this a series of workshops to help spread the word about this really important issue. So right now, this overview is going to take until about 7 p.m. And then we'll have time for questions afterwards. So if you have a question or something comes up, just write it down and we'll definitely get to it at the end of it. And then after that, you will be able to get some free pizza and some free goodies like these piggy banks. These are for you guys to take with you as well tonight. So first, I'll introduce our speakers for this evening. Cool. So my name is Maureen Culbertson. I'm a field representative for the office of Assemblymember Jackie Irwin. She's our state representative. She works up in Sacramento, passing laws and representing our district, and our local office here in Camarillo is hosting events, providing services to local residents and students and stuff like that, so this workshop is a part of that. And then Gloria, you want to stand up? Hi. Gloria, she is a volunteer from California Association of CPAs, so Certified Public Accountants, and by day she works as a controller for Atlas Development, so her full-time job is analyzing finances, balancing budgets, dealing with income, so this is her bread and butter. She's got a lot of experience on these issues. And then Aaron Bad, you guys might recognize him because he's a current Channel Island student and he's also interning, yeah, he's great. He's also interning in our assembly office right now, so he's a part of this presentation as well. Also shout out to Susan Allison from the Office of Financial Aid. They are also here to provide services to you guys. There's flyers for that on your packets and in the back as well. So thank you so much. So next slide. All right, so the goal of this workshop is first and foremost to really define what is financial literacy, why is it such an important issue for us. It's also to provide tools and resources for you all to use outside this classroom today and actually help you to better budget and manage your finances right now. And ultimately, we want this to go beyond just tonight. We want you to share this with your roommates, your classmates, your family members who might not know how to manage their finances. Really spread this around so that we can multiply the impact of tonight is really the goal. Next slide. So yeah, what is financial literacy? Technically, it means being able to use knowledge and skills to manage financial resources effectively for a lifetime of financial well-being. That's sort of the most common definition I was able to find, but really it means knowing what money you have coming in, what you have going out, being able to manage your debt and keep it as small as possible, and also plan ahead so you can actually get what you want in the future with the money that you have. So a lot of you guys might be thinking, why does this matter to me right now? Because most of you are full-time students, you're not fully out there in the workforce, but in reality, that's one of the habits that make it really difficult for recent graduates to become successful. Because when you're in school, it's really easy to drop like tens of thousands of dollars every single semester for your books, your classes, your dorm rooms, all these expenses that between you and your school, your loans, and your parents, you probably don't have to worry about these big expenses that much. So when you get out of school, they become very real. And all of a sudden, all that money that you spent when you're in undergrad, you have really no concept of it, and it's really difficult to pay it back later on, and especially when you have to pay your rent, your mortgage, you have to get a job to pay for all these things, kind of scary stuff. So when you're in school is actually the best time to learn how to track your budget and track your spending, because no matter what, you all probably have some form of income and expenses that you're in charge of, whether you have a part-time job or parents that are giving you allowance and budgeting you every month and stuff, so you definitely have a good area to keep track of these finances right now. So that's why you gotta start it when you're young. All right, and also the trouble with financial literacy is it's not really instinctive. You don't just become 18 and learn how to do all these things right off the bat. So unless your parents sat you down and walked you through all these things, or unless you become an accountant for your job, it's going to be really difficult for you to learn these things unless you learn the hard way. So if you talk to your parents or people that are a couple years ahead of you in their careers, they'll tell you that it really sucks to learn the hard way. So arming yourself is really important. All right, so next up. So some people might need help with financial literacy if you don't know where your money goes at the end of the month, if your paycheck is just gone right away. If you look at your savings account and you have zero or a small amount in your bank account at any given time, you're not building up your savings for the future. If you don't have a good credit score or you don't know what your credit score is, those are some things that might indicate that you probably should get some financial education. Raise your hand if you think one or more of those applies to you. Hands up, hands up. Even you, Gloria. Yeah, yeah, probably. All right, cool. So yeah, if that's you, look around. Everyone else is dealing with the same thing, and this affects you personally, but also our nation beyond this classroom, beyond the state and everything. Cool. So a lot of you might hear about income inequality. It's a really big problem that we're facing right now as a country. You know, if you look at this little handy graph over here, I got my pointer. In 2013, a survey of consumer finances by the U.S. showed that the top 3% of earners in the United States own 54% of the wealth in this whole country. The bottom 7% below that hold 21%. So that means that overall the top 10% of the United States own 75% of the entire wealth. So the 90% has 25%. So it's pretty shocking when you think about that. It makes it seem really daunting to like get into middle class or to raise your economic standing from where you are and put all the other factors aside, so where you came from or what kind of job you take. The same study also showed that a third of income inequality can be linked just to a lack of financial knowledge. So take out all the other factors. If you know how to manage your money and work it smart, you can advance leaps and bounds over what you think you can do. So it's really important. And this is especially true among minorities and women that face these problems. So next slide. All right, cool. So that being said, we want to get you guys thinking like someone who's got a bulk of the wealth for themselves, who's in charge of their finances. So you've got to develop habits that wealthy people have and emulate those habits. So Gloria from Csusi is going to talk about what those look like and how you can start building on them right now. Thank you. Love this.
Perfect. So I want you guys to all think about what the traits of wealthy people have. One of the first traits that come to my mind is having a financial plan and setting a goal. You need a budget and pay attention to where your money goes. You have to ask the right types of questions. How much will this cost me in total? What can I give up to make this happen? Can I afford this? And ultimately, they try to stay out of debt or minimize the type of debt that they have, which we will talk about later. The next thing we'll talk about is the tools and goals that we'll need for financial planning and what it looks like day in and day out to set up these goals. Next slide. So we all love the dreaded B word, budgeting. I'm sure we've all looked like this monkey before. I know I have, and I still do to this day. But think of it really simple. Think of it more as a plan, something basic. It's a proactive approach versus a reactive approach. And budgeting is a key component to financial success. Next slide. So all of you are probably asking, why should I budget? Well, budgeting keeps you in control of your money. It sets you up for long-term financial success and freedom and prevents a crisis. So let's say you're driving to campus and your car breaks down. You take it to the mechanic. The mechanic tells you it's going to be $1,000. Well, you think, oh crap, where do I have that $1,000? Or what do I need to give up? If you have a budget, you can look at your budget and think, okay, well, I don't need to go to the Dodger game next week. I can pay for my card to get it fixed. Next slide. So some of the keys to budgeting basics is the first step is to look and analyze where you are today. In the next couple of slides, I'll show you some cool tools that we can use for that. And one of the key components to remember is the first time you budgeted, you won't get it right the first time. Please give yourself 3 to 4 months to getting your budget right. It may take longer, but just be patient with yourself. Remember to be flexible when you do your budget. Let's say you do want to spend more money on groceries this month. Allocate more money to your grocery bill and then compensate it on your entertainment bill. Leave room for fun. If you don't leave room for that Dodger game, then you won't reward yourself and you won't stick to the budget. If you spend below your income, if not, please adjust immediately. Keep track of your expenses. that $3 Starbucks bill every day really adds up. Update your budget daily. If not, try to do it every other day. I know I look at my accounts every day, not only to manage my budget, but also for fraudulent activity. Next slide. So this is step 1, which is great. Morgan allowed us to show her financial spending from January 1 to March 30th. So this is just a graph that shows her spending. This is a free tool from her bank. Most of your online banks will allow this. So you can see Morgan spends most of her money on groceries and those dreaded student loans. Real time. So the next step is to decide what is a necessity and what is a want. Many of you are probably thinking that, oh, I have a laptop, this is great, but I really want an iPad. Is that really a necessity? A necessity is anything you need to survive. So it would be groceries, gas for your car, etc. For most of you, probably the internet is a necessity. Anything inessential would be a want. So like you already have an a laptop, and you really want that iPad because you think it will make life so much easier. You can convince yourself to think that that iPad is really a necessity when in fact it's just a want. One of the key steps that you should do is write down a list of the necessities and wants in your life. This will help you from when your mind starts playing tricks on you and convincing you that, hey, that iPad, I really need it. It'll help you look back to think, no, I don't need it, it's a want. Next slide. So this is also a great feature from your online bank. It breaks down the categories, and then it gives you a percentage, and then the amount she spent for the first 3 months. So I want to hear from you guys. Where do you think that this is Morgan's breakdown, where do you think she can cut back on some of her expenses? Where is she spending more on wants versus needs? Restaurants? Yeah, restaurants is pretty big. And anyone else? She can probably cut back on groceries. She probably doesn't need to go to Whole Foods every day.
Or Trader Joe's.
Or Trader Joe's. So again, this is online, and most of your online banks or even credit unions offer this tool for free. It's a really great feature to have. So now Erin's going to talk to you about some cool apps. Free apps.
Everyone, yes, my name's Aaron. I'm a student here at CI, and I'm also an intern with Assembly Member Jackie Irwin's office. I'm here to talk to you about some cool apps that we can use to help us with our finances. I know this is really helpful for me personally because I feel like our generation is not that financially literate, and it's not our fault because for me, I was never taught it in school or at home. So apps are really helpful because we all already use them. Some of you guys are probably on your phone using apps right now. So I actually use these apps, and I brought 2 of them here today that I'm going to talk about. So the first one is called Mint. Mint is a free budgeting tool that syncs up with your bank account and your credit card and any other sources of income. And it updates you on your spending in real time, and it allows you to set goals and limits and create categories for your spending. So you can see where your money is going each month, which is really helpful. And by doing that, you can create a budget for each category. So you can set up different categories, and the app will recognize where your money is going. So if you go to In-N-Out, it will automatically put that money into the restaurant category. So you can set up these different categories, see where your money is going, and from that you can create a budget. And one last thing, it has bill reminders, which are really helpful. because as students we have busy schedules and sometimes we don't remember the date we're supposed to pay our bills. And this app will help you with that. So this is kind of what it looks like, what I was just talking about, the different categories. And as you can see, this individual is spending over $4,000 a month at restaurants, which is totally ridiculous. So get the app, see what your categories are, and if you're anywhere close to that on restaurants, you know you gotta switch your lifestyle up. Slide up. Alright, so the next one is called Bill Guard, Protect Yourself. This one is gonna focus more on fraud, like protecting you from fraudulent activity. So it allows you to flag charges, which is really important because a new trend in identity theft is for criminals to take money slowly out of your account so you won't notice. And this helps you flag these charges. So here's kind of what it looks like, and it updates you every time your card is charged. So you see these charges, and you either swipe right if you recognize the charge, or you swipe left if you don't and you think it's fraudulent. So it's like the Tinder of financial literacy apps. And I know all of you have used Tinder. Next slide. So more about the protection. It tracks your money, and this is helpful because if a charge is made on your card and your card is separated by a long distance away from your phone, the app will notify you. So this is helpful if your card has physically been stolen, or if someone has obtained the information for your card and is like spending money with your card in a different city, a different state, or even a different country. Yeah, and then the last thing is you can flag merchants, and what this means is a big thing that people do, fraudulent merchants, is they'll charge you twice, and this app will pick up on that. So if you get charged twice for something at a store, the app will let you know, and you can flag that merchant, and other people using the app will be able to see that someone flagged that store for being fraudulent. And it works vice versa. So with the app, you can see stores in your vicinity where store owners and merchants have been flagged for doing this to people. So in conclusion, budgeting and tracking your finances are fundamental to being financially aware. Apps are great for college students because we all know how to do them, use them. And with that, we'll go back to Gloria, who's going to teach us how to alter your budget once you've tracked it and made a plan.
So now that we know about those cool apps and the basics of budgeting, I'm going to tell you a little bit about income and expenses. We all know probably what income is. Income is paychecks, money from your parents, gifts, interest on your checking or savings accounts. And your income is probably a little erratic because you're not working on a continual basis. So you're probably thinking, gosh, what am I going to use to budget my income for my first month of budgeting? Well, what you should do is go back and look at your income for the last 6 months and use the average rate. It's a really easy way to do it, and if 1 month it's higher, then that money that you saved, put it towards a loan payment or save it for your student loan. And then an expense would be anything like rents, utilities, groceries, fuels, insurance, cell phones, books, tuition, anything like that. There are two kinds of expenses. One is a fixed expense and the other is a variable expense. Next slide. So a fixed expense is anything like a car payment, rent, insurance, tuition. These are a lot easier to budget for because it's a fixed expense, so you know it's coming every month. One of the best ways to manage your money is to look at those fixed expenses and think, how can I eliminate this? So look at your cable bill and say, hey, do I really need that HBO package? I do have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime where I can stream videos. You're paying for the same thing twice. So really take a look at your fixed expenses. Next slide. a variable expense is anything not constant. So it would be like utilities, fuel, groceries, restaurants, anything that is kind of disposable. So a fun fact, in California, we run a summer blend gas to save the environment. I believe that's the reason. So typically your gas bill is higher for your fuel because of the summer blend month in California, and you tend to go on vacation and things like that. Next. So now that we know the basics of budgeting and have the basic terminology, one of the most effective ways to budget your money is to do this zero-based budgeting. So what you do is you start with your income, and with your income, let's say you make $100 in that month, you spend all of that income. And when I say spend, I don't mean go buy a new purse or go buy a new laptop. I mean spend it, allocate it to those particular categories. So I want $10 to go to charity, I want $10 to go to my food, I want $10 to go to clothing, and at the end of your budgeting, you should have $0 at the end. So if you have more money, then put that money towards savings. And remember, you are the boss of your budget. So a big reason people blow their budget is because of the stuff happens. So a good thing to do is to create a stuff happens fund, or as accountants like to call it, a sinking fund. So with the sinking fund, you save a small amount of money for a certain amount of time for that expense coming up in the future. Next slide. You're probably asking, well, this sounds so easy. Why don't people do this? Well, it's because we live in a society of, hey, I want it now. I want this now. So you don't want to wait for that. So something to use a sinking fund for is for spring break, clothing, electronics, vehicle purchase, or if you guys want to study abroad next summer to Spain, I'm estimating you'll have to save about $5,000, and you have 14 months to save. So you'll need to save $357 for 14 months so you can enjoy your studying abroad in Spain and not work while you're studying abroad. So now Morgan's going to talk to you about student loans and debt management.
All right, cool, thank you. All right, fun stuff. So up till this point, we've really been focusing on sort of the here and now of where your money is coming in and where it's going out. But once you all are out in the workforce and taking on responsibilities that are a little bit greater maybe than they are in college in terms of money, you're going to have a lot of external pressures that are going to make that difficult. So obviously all of you are here in school, so student loans are going to be a big part of that right away. And so I want to talk about student loans, different types of debt, and ways to pay them off most effectively once you have them, once they become a reality. So next, please. So yeah, different types of debt. Obviously, student loans to pay off your school, mortgages to pay off your house. If you want to buy a car, you'll need an auto loan. Credit cards are pretty common everyday forms of debt, and two types that are sort of cash up front advance type of debt that we want to talk a little bit more about at the end are payday advance and auto title loans. So we'll get to that in a second. So why does debt suck so bad? It does because it really limits, when you have a lot of debt, it really limits your options. So you might want to move to a new city and take on a new job or look for a new job, but because you have a lot of student debt or other types of debt, you're forced to move back home and pay off those expenses, so that can be kind of limiting. It's also frustrating because it delays your ability to invest. So all that money you're paying off, you could be using it to invest in the stock market or invest in something else, so your money would be growing all the time instead. And it's also a bummer because every time you pay off your interest on a loan or on something else, you're literally giving money to the government or to a lending institution at the end of the day, which it always hurts on the inside when that's money that should be yours. Next. So a student loan is really investing in your education, and it's absolutely the best thing you can do. You know, in terms of setting yourself up to be successful, going to school is crucial in that. So you're all on the right track when it comes to that. But that being said, it's really expensive at the same time, and it's the cost of education are going up every single year. So something that, you know, it's important to look at. The average student in California graduated with $20,340 in debt in 2014. That's just undergrad, and that gets exponentially higher when you go to post-secondary education. So if you go to get your master's or law school, the average law student is $180,000. Med school is $190,000. So before you make, you know, the decision of moving, you want to make sure you're taking on as little debt as possible when you're going to meet your goals with school and everything. So one way to think about that is while you're in school, just know that it's real money that you're working with and try to cut costs as much as possible. So take a community college course or an online class during the summer when you can. Make sure that you're taking advantage of your FAFSA, applying for grants and scholarships every single year. You can be eligible for new ones, and keep those things in mind, definitely. I think this really hits home for a lot of us who just graduated from school, because if you guys remember when you looked at my pie graph of spending, 15% of my money every single month goes to paying off my loans. And it's always, when you get a new job right out of school, it's always a bummer to have part of that go to pay off your loans right off the bat. It's not exactly what you would envision doing right there. So the most you can minimize that as possible is great. Payments start 6 months after graduation. So there's a 6-month grace period after you graduate, and then your loans will be due at that time, but we'll start making payments. Unsubsidized versus subsidized loans. Subsidized loans are ones that they don't accrue interest until after you graduate, or until after that 6 months. But unsubsidized means that right when you get that money, that they start getting bigger. So if you get an unsubsidized loan your sophomore year, it's going to start gathering interest as soon as you get that money. So if you have a means to start paying off unsubsidized loans while you're in school, that's definitely the best way to do it. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to go to this right here. Pull that up. Okay, so Gloria's pulling up a quick couple-minute video. It's about credit card debt. So credit cards are really popular, especially because yeah, so this is a PBS documentary, Your Life, Your Money. It actually talks about a lot of things that we're talking about, but this is a small segment on credit card debt and, you know, how a lot of people use them all the time, but it can be really dangerous if you don't watch out for it. So I'm going to press play.
My Ashley can tell you all about it. She's deep in debt.
I go to Florida State University, fourth year, creative writing sociology major. I completely support myself, so I came to college without any money. I didn't have a job. Financially didn't exactly cover as far as bills are concerned, so nowhere else to turn. I actually got my first credit card, which was a $2,000 credit limit. Actually had Florida State core on it. They sent it to me in the mail. I activated it in 45 seconds. Spent money on it 20 minutes later. Think of I spent the $2,000 on food, transportation, rent for my student dorm, books, just bare necessities that I need to be a successful student in college. At this point, I was using the credit to help me survive. Over about 6 months, between 5 cards, I spent less than $4,000. With interest, late fees, penalties, I acquired over $30,000 in debt.
I have maybe $5,000 in debt. That's not bad, right? That's good. Oh God, no one doesn't want to marry me. I have a lot of about $5,000.
Debt that you're racking up on your cards is only gaining interest, and it's just going to put even more stress and anxiety in your life. People don't understand that this is a loan, and it's a very, very expensive loan. You use a credit card, you get your bill, you pay it off in full. That's going to keep you out of trouble.
Most people don't plan to get into trouble with their debts.
Situations would occur, life would happen, and I would have to use that money to fix my car, or whatever it is. Like, things happen all the time. I would make very sporadic payments on the card, but they weren't really consistent because I needed that money for other things. why didn't you call me back this morning? I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I was at work for the past 3 days straight trying to make money. I'm Amanda, I'll be taking care of you. I'm a server at Applebee's. I like the job a lot. It's more fast-paced, but it's more my style. I work about 30 to 35 hours a week and make money. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm a hustler.
This is pretty much my only source of income besides grants and scholarships that I've gotten through school.
Amanda's situation is not that unusual. Most young people use credit cards, so it's important to pick the right one.
When you're comparing credit card offers, you want to get the lowest interest rate possible, and you don't want to pay annual fees. But when you get a card, you might find yourself slapped with all kinds of fees that you never expected.
Credit card companies in that little fine print that you don't read reserve the right to change that interest rate at any time.
Given the pitfalls of credit cards, it's no surprise that some experts advise young people to avoid using them altogether.
There was a study out of MIT that showed that when you use credit, you tend to spend anywhere from 30% to 100% more than if you use cash. If you can, starting out in your life, avoid using credit. It is a trap. It is a game you cannot win. For the big things, put it on the credit card, but you better darn well be able to pay it off that next month.
Even if you pay just $10 more than the minimum monthly payment, you can significantly reduce the number of years you're paying it back and the amount of interest you're paying back.
If you're having problems paying off your credit card, don't panic.
Sweet. So yeah, if you guys want to check out the rest of that or pass it along to other people, it covers a lot of the same topics. It's also in your little worksheet manual at the back too. So yeah, be careful of those credit cards. It sounds like free money in that. Next slide, please. So I want to talk really quick about payday loans and auto title loans. These are a new sort of phenomena that's spreading like wildfire across the United States. It's cash advance or deferred deposits, as it's otherwise called. If you guys have seen these store locations before, they're all over the place. There's actually more payday loan locations than there are McDonald's in the United States right now. And it's because of a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck and need these cash right up front type situations because, you know, things happen. So that's the people that become more vulnerable to those things. And it creates a big cycle of debt. So what a payday loan is let's say you make $2,000 on your paycheck every 2 weeks. You would take in a check for $2,000, bring it to the payday loan place. They'll give you 85%, so they'll give you $1,850 for that check right away, cash on hand. And then when it comes to your next payday, they'll cash it. And if it bounces or if it doesn't cover their fees and the percentage of interest, then automatically your fees go way up. So you owe them a lot of money right off the bat. Most people, when it creates the cycle of debt, then you have to take out another payday loan to pay off that. So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. So it's really dangerous to buy into one of those. Auto title loans, kind of the same deal, but instead of your payday check, you are giving them the title to your car. So it's basically like turning your car into money right now just by leveraging it. But what they do is they don't have a percentage of interest limit on what they can charge. So for example, one woman, she got a loan for $3,900 on her Lexus SUV, and she ended up having to pay $11,000 in interest on top of that back to them because they can jack it up as much as they want. If you don't pay it on time, it gets worse and worse. So at the end of the day, if you have two options, if you don't pay it back when you're supposed to, they can take your car away, or you have to get another loan and pay them back, and it makes the cycle even worse. So obviously, we want you guys to do your own research and look into things when you're making decisions about your money and deciding where to invest or where to take out loans. But a good rule of thumb with your finances is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Money is money, so if you sign yourself up for something that's more than what you can afford, you're probably going to end up regretting it. It's definitely something that wise people would tell you not to do. Next slide, please. So, you've got your debt. It's totally normal to have some amount all the time, which is, to be expected. We just want it to be as small as possible. But it's really important that once you do have debt, that you don't default on it. So defaulting is when you pay late or don't pay at all on your debt. And so number one thing it does when you do that is it affects your credit score. Your credit score is a number from 0 to 800 that's attached to your social security number. And when you don't pay on time, that number goes down. So the lower it is, it's not good. And that number, when you apply for a job, they can check your credit score. When you try to get a loan or mortgage for a home, they check your credit score to see if they'll offer you a loan. If you're going to go to grad school, a lot of schools will look at your credit score to see if you're a responsible, qualified, candidate for those things. So you become more risky when your credit score goes down. So it's really important to keep that up. You also accumulate interest on your loans, so the cost goes way up when you don't pay on time. Eventually, you're going to get hounded by credit collectors, calling you up all the time, sending you mail, all this stuff, and eventually they'll garnish your wages before you get your paycheck. They'll take money out of it and they'll take your tax return. So the money that you were expecting to get, that you're working towards, won't be there. And that is really frustrating. So you definitely don't want to default on your debt. All right, next slide, I think. Cool. So once you have it, there's some really good strategies to paying it off. So Gloria's going to quickly cover those, and then just different strategies for paying off your debt in an effective way, because it can be kind of confusing. So we'll pass it back to her, and then we'll go to questions.
I just wanted to give you guys a quick little example of what it looks like just to pay the minimum payment on your credit card. So let's say that you have a credit card with a $5,000 balance, and your interest rate is 15%, and the minimum payment's only $225, and you only pay that minimum payment. It'll take you over 121 months or 10 years just to pay that $5,000. Plus, you'll pay an additional almost $2,000 in interest. I mean, it would be nice to have that $2,000 for your pocket versus the bank's pocket. Next slide, please. So hopefully you've all thought about your budget and how crazy debt can spiral out of control. I'm going to talk to you about some quick debt management and elimination tools. The first step is to stop creating more debt. The second step is currently write down a list of all the debts you currently have or plan to have, so like your student loan that you don't have to pay yet, but it will be in the future. Next slide. So there's two methods to paying off your debt. One is the debt snowball, which I'll talk about next, and then the current one is paying off the highest interest rate. So with that list of all your debts, you have a list of your debts and then the interest rate. This method shows, I'm going to pay my credit card with the highest interest rate first and then start attacking that way. But they found out that the debt snowball method to be more effective. Next slide. So the debt snowball is you list all your debts from smallest to largest, and you pay the minimum on all of your debts. But with the smallest debt, you pay more than just the minimum, and then you start paying that off. Once that debt is gone, the money towards the small debt you can put towards the second smallest debt. So it kind of creates a snowball effect, because once the second debt is gone, you pay the third debt, then the fourth debt, then the fifth debt, or however many debts you have. So at this point, it feels really good to, once you pay off your small debt, it feels really good, and you think, all right, I'm going to kick some booty and get rid of the second debt and third debt. The debt snowball is more of a behavior modification more than anything, but it really helps out because you feel like you're getting rid of your debt. So I know these subjects are kind of high level, but I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of debt management and everything.
Thank you. Cool. So we're gonna okay. So thank you so much, Gloria. That was awesome. I learned something from that. So some final thoughts to wrap up on the topics that we're going over today. And this was just, the fundamentals of being financially literate, just being aware of all of these things all the time. So it's your behavior. It's not that's good news to me, is that you're in control of where you go in the future with this. So it's not necessarily about luck or just magic, making your finances better or making your situation better. You can totally control yourself right now that you set yourself up for the future. So you want to watch and study the habits of wealthy people and emulate them, people you admire, watch Shark Tank or all those other things. Make a plan for your money and be really intentional with your budget so nothing's on accident. And definitely live within your means. Don't go crazy with debt or sign up for things because you'll definitely regret it later on. So before you guys head out, we're gonna see if anyone has any questions. There's a blue half sheet survey on your card. You guys can just rip that off. And then we've got some really tasty pizza for dinner for everyone. This is the first in the series. We really need your guys' feedback to make it better or to, you know, hear what you guys thought about it. So if you guys could just take a couple minutes to fill those out, and then we're gonna get pizza for all y'all. So just hand those up to them and we'll do it. So really be awesome. Does anyone have any questions while you're filling those out? Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions about once your debt is paid, dealing with the credit report and getting those people at Transperian and Experian or whatever it's called off of it? Because I haven't had to go through it yet, but I have friends who've had to pay lawyers to get that cleaned up because at those places they seem, I don't even know what to call it, if it's some kind of conspiracy theory or what, but it is like a nightmare trying to get them to take those things off of your credit score list, even after they're paid off.
That are affecting your credit score.
Yeah, so how do you deal with that?
I mean, I would definitely think that it's, are you familiar?
I'm somewhat familiar. I know, like, I've had stuff on my credit report that wasn't mine, so I just wrote a letter. I had to write a letter to the credit companies, and it wasn't too bad. I had to write a letter, and I had to wait, I think, like 3 to 6 weeks. And you're kind of in the hands of the creditor, unfortunately, until they do something. I think there's something in the works about fixing that, but I don't know enough about it to talk about it.
Yeah, why don't you write down that, because you know there's a lot, it's a really broad topic, so if you, could you just jot down a summary of that real quick, and then we'll definitely follow up with you on that and get a more in-depth answer on that, because I think that's a great question, because I know they can be annoying as hell. Any other questions? Yeah.
So the guy who talked about the apps, I was just curious, I don't know if like you happen to know with that Mint app, you said you had to tie in like your bank account
Yeah.
information to that? So
With both of the apps.
yeah, so I was just wondering like for apps like that, like how secure are they?
Yeah, they're completely secure. Before you make an app like that, you have to go through the bank. So it's like Venmo. Do you know what Venmo is? It's a really big app for transferring money, and you do it with a variety of different banks. But yeah, those apps, you know, check with the banks, and they're legally bound with the banks. So it's all completely secure.
And I started using that app. Mint is really awesome because it sends you a weekly summary, like this is where you spent your money this week. This is where you went over your budget, under your budget, in real time. And it's like you can't take money out with the app, you know. So it's literally just showing you your balance. So it's not actually touching your money. So, yeah.
I know you mentioned that our credit score is attached to our social security number. So when we start loans, so does our credit score start when we get loans or when we get our first credit card?
Yeah, so your credit score is, your social security number and your credit score is active from the moment you're born or the moment it's given to you, if you get one later on in life and everything. So that's where, you know, you get into, some people when they're younger, someone messes with their credit score before they were even in school. So you know, when you see things that don't match up, it could be sort of an identity theft situation. So yeah, your credit score is live as soon as you are, basically. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you offer internships?
That's a great question. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so obviously Erin and Jordan, 2 students that are really involved in planning these events. They're students here as well. So if you guys are interested in looking at summer internships, there's applications outside as well if you want to be involved with the Assembly Member's Office. So that was so convenient. All right, any other questions? Okay, great. If you have anything else, please hand those blue flyers in at the sign-in table. I was just informed that the pizza is on its way, so if you want to hang out, I'm so sorry.